Good morning, friends. This is Laura with Potpourri of Life. I hope you had a restful night, and I hope today, Sunday, Labor Day weekend Sunday, that it's a good day for you. Today is my reflective Sunday, and I was going to come on and say something else, and then I realized, wait a minute, it's my daughter's birthday. And no, I didn't forget about it because I'd been thinking about it for the last couple of days. Yes, my throat's still hurting me. And I did a test. I'm negative. Just putting that out there. And I'm actually kind of glad that it came out negative because, I started being concerned because of how I was feeling. But I feel fine. It's just when your throat hurts, it kind of it just doesn't make you feel good. Anyway, back to my daughter. My firstborn daughter, she turned 36 today. She was born, my husband and I were married 6 years before we had her. We waited until we were, what we felt we were ready. And God blessed us in terms of allowing us to wait and take our time and not be pressured like some parents or some people pressure people to have kids early. I never believed in that because I've seen how some children are just that way. And even with my own kids, I'm not pressuring them to have children because you know what? This is their life. And so I just take great pride in the choices my kids make. Now, when we raised Heather, that's my oldest daughter's first name, we raised all three girls in a Christian home, in a church environment. And like all Christians, we weren't perfect. We weren't perfect children. And yet we have this scripture. This is Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. And those of you who are taking this out of context and saying it doesn't say she, you got to understand that the Bible is implying both he and she here. So please be considerate when you hear of people sharing the Word of God, because that's what it is. And He speaks to all of us through all the biblical words here. Now, so we are to train up our children in the right way. Because of the variable denominations that use the same scriptures, sure, they change the words a little bit, but it still comes down to this Bible. And in saying that, we tried really hard to follow this. And we were very proud of how our girls wanted to understand the Bible. And then the other part of this instruction is to raise them up to be responsible, hardworking, honorable people, and authentic. Now, does the Bible say authentic? I bet I could find it. What I'm saying is God desires each of us to grow. Now, the nice thing about my oldest daughter, it's really cool. And please don't think I'm putting her on a pedestal, but I'm also not putting myself on a pedestal. I'm not perfect by a long shot. and she challenged me. But I'll be honest with you, all three of our daughters were really good kids. We rarely had to punish them. I mean, yeah, you put them in timeout and they go read a book. And then we learned, this is the thing with this daughter. She was getting older and she was being sassy. So I said, honey, just go to your room. And she goes, good, I'd rather be there so I can read books. I said, whoa, I know what to do now. How do you punish a child? You take their books away. So I actually put her, hold on a second. I have to let the motorcycles go by. So we had her go into the living room. And so she was finding things. And so I'm picking up newspapers. I'm picking up, back then we were getting the Reader's Digest. And it was just like books that I was reading, they were appropriate. We had clean reading materials in this house. So it wasn't anything that we didn't want her to read. We wanted her to be punished for how she was talking to me. When I discovered that was why she liked getting punished, that changed the whole course of discipline in our family. She was a good kid, smart as the dickens. And she's a girl I could discuss scriptures with because she knew the Word of God. She knew it front to back, back to front. And I believe she still does. I mean, once you have that in your heart, it doesn't go away. But what I wanted to share is that as our children grow, my daughter was given wings. And if one wing broke, a new one grew in. And she always picked herself up and kept going. Sure, she would come to me and just say, Mom, and she'd be in tears. But you kind of allow them to figure things out on their own. And when they were younger, I did all that mother stuff. And they would just, Mom, you're mama bear. I was more like that when people were hurting my kids. And yes, I will still be a mama bear to them. But nowadays, they're kind of like saying, Mom, this is mine. So it's getting harder to be a mom in that sense. But it's also easier because we trained our children to be good adults, to be honorable children, adults. And they have God in their heart. Now, I think some of the things that have changed me as a person are my children. Our first daughter, who is today the one who's turning 36, she taught me a lot. She's stubborn. She is creative, but not in the same way I am. And she's feisty. I won't tell you what parent she takes after at all. Actually, the creative side, she gets from both David and I. The feisty side, yeah, I might have to take credit there. The hard working comes from both of us. But her determination, that comes from me. And I'm not saying that to brag. Please understand, I'm not. The thing that makes David and I work is the characteristics that make us different. And that's what makes almost any marriage work. Doesn't make it perfect, but it's perfect for us. I don't know if that makes sense because a lot of people think, well, if you have a disagreement, that can't be perfect. Well, in fact, it is, because we aren't designed to just go along and be happy-go-lucky all the time and just nothing is ever wrong. We have disagreements. We have different viewpoints, including in how we raised our children. But as we raised our kids, we came together in agreeing on different things. And it was interesting because I was the one who was in line with the kids most of the time. More so when I started homeschooling them. I was home with them all the time. And so when they really gave me a hard time, I said, okay, you're just going to have to talk to your dad when he gets home. And this one here would say, good, he's just a lot easier to talk to. And you know what? She has a really unique bond with her dad. She and I have a good bond as well, but not the same. And sometimes, I'll be honest, sometimes I'm jealous. But there's nothing wrong with that. So all her personalities, no, she doesn't have multiple personalities. All of the personality parts that make up her are what came from both of us. And as she grew, as with my other daughters, as she grew, I was just watching. It's like, oh my goodness. And she truly did have wings, and they broke when she had disappointments. And she has passion. And I'm not talking about when she sets her mind to doing something, she's passionate about it. Now, one of the things that I taught our girls is when you start something, you need to finish it. Because when I was homeschooling them, they wanted to change up their history course. These is the two older ones. I said, okay, what do you want to change? Because we were using a Becca and we were using another homeschool curriculum, and I was open to changing it. And they said, well, we want to do something about the different centuries. I said, okay. I said, pick a year, pick a 10-year span. Decide, I want you to report research and report on women that made an impact during those 10 years. No, 100 years. It was 100 years. 10 women. What are the different dynamics that change economically, geographically, all of that stuff? Yeah, it was a tough course. They decided. And I don't know which one instigated it, the oldest or the second. I'm not sure. I think it was the oldest. And they loved it. They got to understand about the women and the men and how our country had changed. This is not something they do in the regular high school. And my daughter did go to the regular high school for her French class. And then she was also with another teacher for, I think, algebra. I refused to teach them algebra because they could do geometry, but I can't teach geometry. But they weren't getting algebra. And it's kind of one of those things, algebra and geometry, you either get one or the other, but not both generally. I can do algebra, but geometry, as an adult, I'm getting the hang of it. So it does come into your life at times, more so when you're sewing or any creative type stuff. But her teacher, she would share with them what she was doing for history, and she really was excited about it. And they said, you got to be kidding, your mother's making you do that? She goes, no, this is what we want to do. You know, that's what I like about my kids. And that's what I like about my daughter. When she decides to do something, she goes all in. And as she's grown, as she develops new wings to fly, she's learning along the way. Now, 36, she's an adult. She makes her own decisions. I don't interfere. When she was in college, I did, and I got a rude awakening. She was the first one. Mom, I need my life. I'm like, okay. But you know, she was right. And that was hard for me. And as my second one went off to college, that was hard too, but a little bit easier. She set the stage, but she also taught me about me. And that's what I love about her. I love all my kids for all their unique characteristics. I love how they all have created the person in me because I took the time to listen when they didn't like something. As they got older, I said, okay, let's have a conversation about this. And our world doesn't do that. We don't sit down to see what is going on with our differences. We view something, but we don't communicate. If we don't like what another person says, they're bad. Don't socialize. That's not what I wanted to raise my children like. Now, do my kids agree with me on everything? Oh gosh, no. They do not at all. And they have good values. Teach your child in the way that you want them to go. They have done that. They all make me extremely proud. They're all different. They've all gone off into different directions. And our daughter our oldest daughter, she went off to college. She, just like her sister, she asked, Mom, I just don't know what to go to school for. I said, well, what are you passionate about? What brings you joy? And she was on the worship team. She had gone on a mission group, the Continental Singers, so she was singing in that. She had a guitar, and so she says, Mom, I really find joy in music. And I said, okay. I says, there's careers out there if that's what you want, and, you know, research the colleges that are right for you. And she did. She went to a really good school. I think I would have talked her out of it, and I'm not going to mention the college name because I don't think that would be appropriate. There's some things I would have done different, but see, when I went to college, I went to night school, and I was going to night school after my kids were born. And actually I started before they were born, but I was still going to school while they were little. So it was a different dynamic. And she went off, and it truly was very different. It was socializing, and it was all this stuff. And I got critiqued by a lot of Christian moms and dads of the churches that we had gone to. We had gone to a couple. And they did not agree that we did not send her to a Christian school. And sometimes I felt guilty about that. Looking back, I am glad I allowed her to choose what school. All she had to do was tell me the cost, what are the plans to get you through, what are your goals. And so she went into, she got her bachelor's in music and sound recording and all that kind of stuff because she loved being up on the sound system in the church. So the church gave her opportunities, which was fabulous. That's another way of allowing your children to grow, is allowing them the opportunities for them to experience different things. Now, one of the things I did not do is that I did not shield them, although they think I did. I allowed them to know what was going on in the world. I was very truthful about a lot of stuff. What kind of things to be prepared for when they go to college on a personal level. Excuse me. But I did everything possible to make sure that they had everything they needed. And she was going to Connecticut. And that's where she ended up living for a long time. And she got married to a college sweetheart. And they're still married, but they're no longer in Connecticut. They're now in Croatia. Isn't that awesome? I'm really happy for them, because this is something that, I'm telling you, her wings just kept, every time one broke, a new one would grow, and it just made her stronger. So as she was looking for colleges, she did all this stuff, and then, of course, you go to your orientations, and all schools tell you is, we're going to get you a job, we're going to help you do this, and they were useless after 4 years of an expensive school. So, you know, she did some work in that, but then she said, Mom, I'm going to go on for my master's. I said, okay. And so she did. And she is a special needs teacher. And she did that for a number of years. And then what she did when the world collapsed these last 2 years, being a teacher, by the way, is hard. I'm not talking about being a homeschool mom, homeschool teacher. Being a teacher in special needs is a challenge, because what's really interesting is parents know more than the teachers. My daughter used to go nuts, but you know, she loved those kids more than I could ever imagine a teacher loving children. And I think that's why people who go into teaching do so. It's because they love the kids. But with all of that, she ended up retiring from teaching, and she's, I'm not sure if she's done with her studies yet, to being a tutor online, so that she can teach those who speak another language to speak English. I think if she's not done, she's close to being done. But she's over in Croatia because her husband got transferred over there. And I asked her, how's it going? And it's going great. They really love it over there. And as a mom, sure, I would love to have her in close proximity so I could go visit. Even though Connecticut was 3 hours, I really can't get on a boat or fly and just go visit her anytime. So I think technology has made it a lot easier as parents, as our children decide what avenue they're going to go in life. So today is more about watching our children grow, watching our children as their wings break, most especially our children who just want to go after everything. And she did. She was on the track team, even though she was homeschooled, because a lot of people used to tell us, you can't do any of this. And I said, well, let me tell you the laws. Because before I started homeschooling, I wanted to make sure what my kids could do. They could take classes at the public school for courses that I didn't feel adequate in. I took French in high school, but I wasn't going to teach her French. I wasn't going to teach her algebra and geometry. That was something I allowed them to do. And she wanted to be on the track team. Then by all means, you go on the track team and you run your heart out and you do what's good for you. And she loved it. I don't think she can run anymore because of her knees and stuff, but she hikes and she loves the exercise that she gets. But being on a sports team or even on track, it's still a team. So you're working together. So every aspect of our children's lives are a stepping stone towards when they become an adult. What I liked about my daughters, all 3 of them, they respected me a great deal, I'll be honest with you. They got frustrated with me, I'll be honest. But once they realized how to communicate with me and say, Mom, I don't like this. And I would just sit back and say, really? What am I doing wrong? And once they started to explain how maybe I worded something, how it affected them, I said, oh, I can change that. My youngest daughter said to me, it was a couple months ago, she goes, ever since you started doing that, you're the easiest parent to talk to. See, a lot of people are afraid to speak to others. And I'm a very outspoken. My oldest daughter is outspoken. She, we have a mind of our own. But even my oldest daughter and I, we see the world very differently. But we don't have an argument about it. We communicate. And if we still don't agree with each other, it's okay. We love each other anyway. We go on our way. She might think I'm crackers, and I'm just like, I love her to pieces anyway. Because our children are ours for a time. And then as they go off, whether they get married or not, they become an adult in their own independent self. The part that's really a joy as parents is we get to see the growth that they did from those younger years, falling on their knees, falling and getting hurt. When she was young, when I was nursing my second daughter, Heather was all over the place, and she wanted to get the swing going. And I don't know if our family doctor listens to my YouTube, but he'll remember. He was with us for a lot of things for the girls. But anyways, she wanted to get the swing all ready for her sister. And I was over there trying to nurse. And I said, Heather, please stop. And I could see a danger. I didn't know how bad it was going to be. Yes, you're going to hear this story. So she's standing on the chair, the chair with big arms and stuff. And she was standing on it, getting this all wound up. And I'm seeing stuff happening. And she did. She fell onto our heating grate. So I had to unlatch our second daughter, get up, get her off, call the doctor saying, I'm coming in. She's bleeding all over the place. We didn't know what we were looking for because, and I pretty much found where it was, and I kind of put a compress on, and we brought her to the doctors, or I did, because David wasn't home yet. I just called him. I said, David, you got to get down here. You got to get to the doctors. And he didn't get the message because we didn't have cell phones back then. I left a message on our house phone, and he said he was scared because he got home and there was blood everywhere. He saw a trail of blood everywhere. I said, ignore that. Get down here now. Because Heather was in a lot of pain. And I don't know if this is the moment that bonded them, but when the doctor had to suture her, and because when David got there, I was holding Holly. Holly's a very sensitive girl, and she can feel emotions, sort of like me. She's very unique in her own way too. Just because my kids have characteristics like me doesn't mean that they are me. I want people to understand that I get that. They are their own individuals. But as an infant, I was taking care of her, and so David got in there, and the doctor said, we need to put her in a papoose. And I'm outside listening. Or maybe I was in there for that, and I said, what do you mean? And the papoose is just like that Indian carrier where you just wrap your child so that they're nice and snug, right? And the reason they do this is so that they can keep them from hurting themselves while the doctor is trying to suture them or whatever the case may be. The doctor did a great job. And I mean, he was a family doctor. He's now retired. He's such a good guy. And so he's suturing her, and I went out. I couldn't stomach this. I was like, and I'm a tough mom. I've seen my kids fall on cement, and I mean, I feel the pain in my own knees when they fall. I couldn't. And so I said, David, you watch her, and I'll go here, because the doctor needed an adult. He needed a parent in there with her. And so I'm outside, and I'm in tears as she goes, Daddy, 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 because she was releasing the energy of fear and pain. And she just attached to him thereafter. But I don't think that's what caused it. But Daddy was her hero that day. Daddy will always be her hero. And he has been throughout her life. She still loves her mom, but her daddy is her hero. And you know, it's sort of like, I don't think she loves either of us more or less than the other. I just think that even as with our kids, we have a special bond with each of them based on a few experiences, their personalities and stuff like that. That day she lost every wing that was imaginable. But you know what? She picked herself up, and she was, I think she was 18 months. She was always into stuff. She was a good kid, but she was willing to try and do everything. She would climb anything. She would do whatever. And she would challenge me. She would jump on the bed when I told her not to. She would, if I told her it was time for bed, she would say no. I can't do this. You know, when you're working and stuff, working 2 jobs, you come home and you're in college and stuff. It's like, I don't have time for this. So that's when I learned I needed my husband to take care of things when he got home. But her wings got broke a lot. And yet every wing that came out made her stronger. And I think she's still finding her way in this world. I'm not sure. She loves what she's doing now. And that makes me proud as a mom. And they don't have kids, and I'm not upset about that. And she did ask me, she goes, Mom, how do you feel about this? I said, honey, this is your life. This is not my life. This is yours. You got 18 years of responsibility with that child. So you decide what's best for you, and they love to travel. And anybody who thinks that's selfish, it's selfish for you to say that, because we all are entitled to our own choices in life. And if somebody decides, I don't want children, that is their choice. And their reasons are theirs. It's not mine. I didn't stop loving her. And she did thank me. She goes, Mom, do you know how many people, and being a teacher, she got pressured a lot on, why aren't you having kids? Why are you a teacher if you don't love kids? She was a better teacher because she loved kids. But at first it wasn't the right time. And then as their marriage went on, they decided that they just didn't want to. Am I happy for them? Absolutely. And look at where they are. They're in Croatia. They have traveled. That is not selfish. That is something that's in their hearts and something that they want to do. And I'm proud of her. I'm proud of both of them as a couple too. Because they didn't do the norm, or the old-fashioned norm, or what Dave and I decided to do. And even Dave and I waiting 6 years to have kids was not the norm. It took us a longer time to become grandparents because we waited to have children. There is nothing wrong with that. And so when she asked me, she told me, she goes, I just so appreciate that you weren't upset. I said, no. I'm more proud of you as the person you are, and I would rather see my kids happy in this world. So when we bring up our children in the way that they should go, we should be taking into account what brings them joy. How can they serve this world? How can they serve God? How can they be the real person that they are in this world if we don't allow them to grow wings? And she did. Does she make mistakes? If she does, she doesn't tell me anymore. But when she's having a tough time, when she calls, and she called a lot. I mean, during college, I couldn't call back because she only called when she needed me. So I learned then that that's what she wanted. All three of my daughters are like that. And then as she got into the workforce, she encountered some interesting things. And in our family, we taught our girls that if you have a communication problem, talk to one another. And we did that exercise a few times, and finally they stopped arguing, at least according to Dave and I. Then we said something to them. I said, you girls don't argue anymore. They said, Mom, we didn't like that you sat us down at the kitchen table and had us talk it out. Because what I would do is I would let one person talk, then the other, and they couldn't interrupt. And they learned, because I also said, okay, what could they have done better? What could you have done better? How can you resolve this? And the only complaint that this daughter, Heather, said to me as she got into the workforce, she said, Mom, the one thing you did not teach me, and I'm like, oh no. There's a lot of things I probably did not teach them. Yeah, there's a lot that I didn't teach them. She said, you didn't teach us how to handle people that don't do conflict resolution. And she's right. Because if we can't go to work and be able to communicate, then that makes it for a tough career, a tough job. And I think sometimes even today in this world, because am I opinionated? I think everybody has their own opinion as to whether or not they think that I'm that way. I'm pretty direct, I'm bold, and I have different values than other people. But the one thing I do have is I have an open mind. If you talk to me, then we can come to an understanding so that we can further grow as, whether it's co-workers, as friends, or whatever. And that's why people don't have lots of friends in this world. Because you get mad at somebody, you run away. I've had a few friends do that. So now everybody's an acquaintance. I have one person that I really treasure. I don't think she realizes how much I treasure her. She's somebody I worked with when I was working at Concord Hospital, and she's been on my mind. And the one thing I need to do is reach out to her and tell her, because she will sit down and listen, but I've never had a problem with her. But other people do, and with me and with her. And I think the difference is we work hard. We have moral values. We have strong work ethics. My daughters do too. And so when that conflicts with other people, there's division. I went to an interview at a job, and this was after my daughter told me that. I went, and it was in a healthcare facility, and I was interviewed, and they asked me this question of, what would you do if you saw a coworker doing something wrong? I said, I would just probably go up and talk to them and just say, is there something we can do? Because this is really not right. And I didn't get hired. And I told my daughter, I said, there is something in their body language, in their facial expressions that somehow I answered wrong. And my daughter said, you did. I said, why? I said, that's conflict resolution. People need to communicate, work together as a team. She says, no, Mom. Most organizations want you to go tattle on them. I said, that's why they say that you could be a part of your coworkers' review. I'm like, that's horrible. Because if we're going to work with one another, we need to uphold each other, encourage each other, and be a team. And I guess that's not what is happening. And I didn't realize that. So my daughter says, Mom, they're not going to hire you. And I'm like, well, this stinks. I just wasted time going up there. But you know what? To learn that, I realized that I don't want to work for somebody that's going to make me tattle on people for minute little things. But then again, is it a bad thing? Because nobody wants to be accountable. And that's what my daughter ran into. So I guess I'm running off on a tangent here. But I love what my daughter has taught me as I tried re-entering the workforce after I was diagnosed. And, I really wanted to go back to work. And I really wanted to go back into the healthcare environment. I was really looking forward to it. But it wasn't meant to be. And that's okay, because God has given me direction in terms of the herbs and nutrition and so forth. So I take courses here and there, and I keep expanding upon my knowledge. And I study even without the studies. So you see, my firstborn, she's 36 years old today. She makes me proud. And I remember some of those challenging moments. She was a tough cookie. But like David says, she's a lot like you, Laura, because she's determined. There's nothing wrong with being determined. Her assertiveness can come across as aggressive. It's because the passion and her desire to do well, there's a lot of energy, and people don't understand it. They back up. You take time to get to know one another, whether it's your children or whether it's people you are neighbors with, friends or whatever, workers or whatnot. But I'm telling you, that's why we don't have tons of friends in this world, is because people don't know how to be friends. But I am very proud of my daughter because she cares about the people in her life. She works hard. She adores her husband. She loves the adventures they have gone on. We get pictures of where they've been, and it's like a dream for her. I'm not a world traveler type person. put me on a farm and let me go. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some places I've told David, I said, I really need a vacation away. And I've told him where some places I'd like to go. Would I want to go across the ocean? I used to, but not in today's economic situation or political whatever. That's not for me. So I wanted to come on and just say, God does give each of us wings. And when they get wounded, he mends them or he replaces them. And when he replaces them or mends them, they become stronger. And that's what happens. When we get hurt, we become stronger. When things happen to us and challenge us, we work through it and we become stronger. And people don't understand that strength. And I hope she never gives up on being the person that she is, because she makes me proud. She makes me very, very proud. And I mean, all my daughters do, but today's her day. And it's hard to believe, 36 years ago, this little 5-pound baby comes into the world and she changed my life. And every day she changes it again. I don't see her every day. Okay, so every couple weeks to a month or something, she changes me. Not who I am. I just learn a little bit more through who she is. Sometimes I learn a little bit about me, and then I discover some things about her, and I'm like, well, that was a shocker. You see, I allowed my kids, I taught them God's Word. I made sure they had a solid Christian upbringing. I watched how they got hurt in the church. It happens. And we had gone to a couple different churches. But what I saw was a girl who was determined to become herself. And I'm proud of her. I hope today is a beautiful day for you. I hope you can reflect back, and if you don't have children and you know, maybe you're not at that stage, I hope you can look back at some things that make you proud of yourself even. If you have children, regardless of the age, find something that makes you proud of them. They will be a challenge. And yet when they get to this age of adults, they can still be a challenge because their viewpoints might be different than your own. You might get disappointed, like we don't see her but a couple times a year, and that sometimes that's heartbreaking. But I understand, you know, so I have methods of communicating with her, so it's not the end of the world. And one thing she told me, we talked about how we would never live together as adults. And I said, why? She goes, Mom, we'd kill each other. And you know why? We wouldn't kill each other. We just couldn't be compatible because we're so much alike. It's like magnets that just don't connect. We love each other. We have a lot of personalities that are the same. But when you have, that's why it's kind of nice having differences with my husband, because that's what makes it unique. We don't always agree. And so I hope you have kids, if you do, that you reach out to them. Tell them how proud you are of them, because our children are amazing people. And if we bring them up well, train them right, even though they may stray, even though they may make decisions that aren't your decisions. One of the things she told me, she goes, Mom, I know you mean well, but let me make my mistakes. Because as parents, we don't want them to make the same mistakes as we did. And so I sat back. I was always there for them. So it's kids are great. So Heather, if you decide that you're watching this today, happy birthday, sweetheart. You mean the world to me. I miss you, but you have been a gift and a blessing. God bless you all. Have a great day.